Council. My name is Mitchell Brown. I am City Council member and Chair of the Columbus Recreation and Parks Committee. I am also joined this afternoon by my co-chair, Councilmember Emmanuel Remy. Tonight, or this afternoon, and I apologize for starting a little late, but technology, so wonderful and so reliable. And Mark does such a wonderful job. He's not even paying attention, see? A reminder this evening, the hearing is currently live on YouTube and on Facebook and is also live and being recorded for rebroadcast on CTV, Columbus Government Television Channel 3. The rebroadcast is scheduled available at www.columbus.gov. The purpose of today's hearing is to hear a presentation from the Recreation and Parks Department on the proposed changes to the city's public tree code and first tree technical manual and receive feedback from the community. For today's purposes, we will refer to public trees. We are referring to all trees growing on city-owned properties. This code change is the first step of the commitments made in the Urban Forestry Master Plan. Again, I'm joined by my colleague, Councilmember Remy, who chairs the Environmental Committee. Councilmember Remy, I will turn it over to you, sir, for some comments.
Thank you so much, Chair Brown, for hosting today's tremendous opportunity to talk for this public hearing to review proposed public tree code amendments and to have a discussion about the importance of protecting our tree canopy here in Columbus. As the chair of the Environment Committee, I've enjoyed being an advocate for trees and partner of the Columbus Recreation and Parks Department and external partners who grow, plant, and protect trees in our community. The Urban Forestry Master Plan started in October 2019 and was published in 21, is a strategic long-term plan for the city and community to use as a guide. The public tree code amendments in front of us today is just one piece of this plan, but an important step that has been 4 years in the making. Trees on public property, aka any tree owned and cared for by the City of Columbus, should be protected during construction or times of disease, pruned and cared for appropriately, and when the need for a tree to be removed arrives, a strong enforceable plan to replace the trees is important. I look forward to hearing from our presenters about the code amendments being proposed and to working in lockstep with Chair Brown to bring these amendments to a Columbus City Council for passage in the near future. I want to thank the team in front of us here today and for their presentation and all the work that they've done over the past several years to make sure that this is one component of our overall sustainability plan. And so this is an integral part of that plan. So we're excited to hear more and look forward to the presentation. Chair Brown, back to you.
Thank you, Councilmember. To start things off, I'd like to introduce Commissioner Terry Termeer, who is here on behalf of the Recreation and Parks Commission and will say a few words. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and oops, there you go. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, Councilmember Brown and Councilmember Remy. I am honored to be here to represent the Recreation and Parks Commission. I am the current vice chair of the commission and appreciate the opportunity to be able to just kind of say a few words regarding the proposed tree code code changes that we have today. As you know, the environment is an ever-changing opportunity. It is an ever-changing opportunity for us to kind of look at the environment, to protect what we have, and to prepare for the future. And as part of Recreation and Parks, you know, we operate on we have recreation, we have programming, we look at wellness, but the environment and preservation of that is as important as anything else, and it contributes overall. But our tree code today, the code changes that we are looking at, we are also looking at some the tree technical manual that is going to help us establish some standards. There are a couple of things that you'll hear a little bit more today from the staff that is here. The proposed changes actually allows for the city to reach the goals of the Urban Forestry Master Plan, which obviously was approved in 2021. And it provides for stronger and tree protections on public properties and public lands. And it sets some city standards that are according to standards that have been established on a national basis and some of the best practices that we have in urban forestry. The points I want to stress more so than anything else, what we hope to be able to accomplish with this master plan and these proposed changes is if we can reach our citywide tree canopy cover of 40% by 2050, that we stop the net losses of the canopy by mid-2030s, and that we can invest in an equitable canopy across all of the city. And that's as important as anything else. You'll hear probably some comments today from the public. There are urban areas right now within the core city that have either been neglected, never looked at. Oftentimes you deal with absentee landlords, so you don't have the opportunity for them to kind of reach out and do the types of things that need to be done. So this is a great opportunity for the city to kind of take the reins and to establish some code standards that allow for us to kind of move forward. And it won't just be about conversations that we have within city government. It will be about things that are codified in the code that allows for us to look to the future to provide some protections overall and to allow us to literally grow a canopy that just does so much for the city. It really puts us in a position to be a green community, and it makes us walk the walk. We're talking the talk, but these proposed changes allow for us to continue to walk the walk and to actually do that overall for our community. So I thank you again. Staff will be here to go through it all pretty rigorously. I've been involved in some of the conversations that we've had, gone through the code changes with them, and these proposed changes, they'll be presented back to our commission overall on our October meeting, at which time we will do a formal vote. Obviously, I can't speak for my colleagues, but I'm fairly certain that it will be passed. So, thank you. Any questions for me?
No, no questions at all. Councilmember? Now to the main presentation of the proposed public tree code changes and tree manual by Rosalie Hendren, Senior Environmental Planner for the Columbus Recreation and Parks Department. Ms. Hendren, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me all right? Okay. Is it possible to have the slides up or just here? Well, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thrilled to be able to work on this project. We really appreciate council's support, our commission's support, our leaders' support, and all the other departments. This has been a huge effort, not just by Recreation and Parks, though we've been leading these efforts, but it's really been a citywide effort to create these code changes. So I'll see if this clicker works, and we'll just run through what we're really proposing here today. Great. Okay, so just to reiterate, as Chair Brown already mentioned, when we talk about public trees, we're talking about all the trees that are growing on city-owned properties. Those trees are managed by the Recreation and Parks Forestry team. Our city forester is here with us, Steve Horhut, and he will be assisting in some questions that may arise. And then the public tree code that we're talking about improving is really to protect those trees that are growing on that publicly owned land. So street trees, park trees, or any trees like the trees growing outside here on the City Hall campus. Before we get too far into the discussion, I've realized it's important to talk about how we measure trees in the first place. So in the tree industry, we talk about diameter inches. Okay. Okay. So trees are measured by the diameter of their trunk at 4.5 feet above the ground. Obviously, trees come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, so that visual on the right just shows some different situations. But really, we're talking about diameter. It's either called diameter at standard height or diameter at breast height is what it was historically called. So when we talk about tree sizes and tree diameter and tree inches, we're talking about the trunk of the tree. As Commissioner Tamir and Councilmember Remy have already pointed out, we have an Urban Forestry Master Plan, and those goals that we created in partnership with the community. And these canopy goals are all about growing, prioritizing, and preserving the trees that grow here in Columbus. So our overall goal of reaching 40% by 2050, but those two intermediate goals of stopping net canopy loss and investing in equitable canopy are both critical as well to reaching that pathway of that overall goal. So when we embarked upon this project, there were several reasons that we wanted to, beyond just it being an action in the Urban Forestry Master Plan, that we wanted to take on this work. So I already mentioned the no net loss goal. We see this protecting public trees as really important for stopping net canopy loss. But some other reasons were that Chapter 912 that covers trees and shrubs was last updated in 1991, so we wanted to take a good look at that code and modernize it. 30% of our trees are growing on public property, so while it's not the majority of the canopy, it is important to, It is important to protect that portion of our canopy. We're a large landholder as a city, and we want to make sure we're doing our part, leading by example, and preserving as much canopy on our land as possible. And we're really looking toward the future and eventually looking to what we can do to protect trees on private property as well. I'll talk a little bit about the 2015 executive order, but something that we learned when reviewing policy for the Urban Forestry Master Plan was that there are loopholes that exist in this current executive order that we're looking to address with this code. And ultimately, those loopholes in the current system means that we lose more tree inches than are being replanted under our current system. A little bit about the process we followed. We took the majority of last year to draft our first tree technical manual. We've never had a manual that is all about trees here in the city, as well as potential code language. Throughout the last 10 months, we've had 35 meetings with other city departments, including a 7-part focus group series. And this is based on comments that were made and really just trying to figure out the logistics and implementing how we will implement these changes in a way that works for everyone. We are having 2 public comment periods. So we had one initially before we started drafting anything last February, and then we're in the middle of a second comment period now that we have draft documents for the public to review themselves and provide more detailed input. Our goal is to get to legislation, as Commissioner Tamir mentioned, getting to the commission meeting in October, and then council action October, November, and then 30 days after the second reading, having that be finalized in December. And we're proposing a 6-month grace period with enforcement of the manual taking place July 1st of next year.
It's fun. You have to roll with it.
I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm sorry. Oh, it's not me? Okay, good. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so I just would like to walk us through some of the different, major changes that we're proposing. The tree technical manual I've mentioned, we're really accomplishing 2 actions in one. So there's the best practices manual was a recommended action within the Urban Forestry Master Plan, and at the same time, it's supporting this public tree code. So the idea being that, as you all know, city code should not have all of the details that might need to be updated frequently. It really should be broad and flexible and allow for changes over time. So that's what we find is the strength in this manual, is that's where our details are, and that's where all those processes are going to be held, and that will allow us to revise the manual over time. I want us to talk a lot about mitigation just because it's a really important term. So before I get, okay, awful. Should I switch? It's okay.
It won't be any better.
It won't be any better. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Mark, just so you know, Rosalie, we're going to plant Mark when this is all over.
You actually, you might, because I guess you're missing the.
Oh, okay.
I might still-
Is this gonna work? Okay, we'll try this. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Okay, so mitigation. So if a public tree is removed, when we say mitigation, we mean what steps are we taking to make up for the loss of that tree? So I mentioned the 2015 executive order. That really set a foundation for our city to, for the first time, require mitigation when public trees had to be removed during city capital projects. I mentioned loopholes. It exempted routine maintenance, and it also, in the text of the order, exempted privately funded projects. So what we're proposing under the new tree code will require mitigation for all removals of public trees, no matter the project owner, no matter what type of project. And mitigation, how that loss is made up for could be replanting, fee in lieu, or a combination of both. Okay, so going through those options, when it comes to replanting, in our current system, trees are replaced based on a ratio. So it could be one tree for one tree, if it's a tree under 12 inches in diameter, all the way up to 5 trees when one tree is removed if that tree is over 36 inches in diameter. So under the current system, for example, a 20-inch diameter tree would only need to be replaced by 3 new trees. However, what we're proposing in our new system is inch for inch replacement. So every removed inch must be replaced either by replanting or by paying a fee. We'll talk about the fee next. But for example, that same 20-inch diameter tree would need to be replaced by 10 other trees of 2-inch caliper each. So you can see 10 trees, 2 inches each, 20 inches in replacement tree inches. Now, I mentioned fee in lieu. So this is something that our department and really the city in general has had since 1988. The fee in lieu was $100 per inch of trunk diameter. In 2021, we raised that to $200 per inch, both recognizing the inflation over time, but also the Urban Forestry Master Plan and how important public trees are to our city. Now, that was something that was not in code. So this is really an advancement to make sure that our proposed tree code now has those mitigation options. And not in the code, but in our manual, because it's something that'll need to be updated over time, is this rate of $260 per inch. And and when I say we, I mean Steve did a really thorough job calculating that fee per inch. He looked at a survey of a representative number of public trees and appraised them, but also did activity-based accounting, looking at the labor and the supplies that were needed to plant back trees, as well as the inflation, over time and what $1 was in 1988 versus today. So we feel very confident. Everything that he calculated was right around that $260 per inch. So we feel confident that that is a fair value to be charging for fee in lieu. And that fee goes to the tree fund, which forestry uses to plant more public trees here in Columbus. Just a visual of what we've just discussed. So say that 20-inch street tree is removed. There's 3 options, right? So replanting at 100%. So replanting those 20 inches that were lost with 10 2-inch trees. And that could be on site if possible. That's always the best option. Or that could be off site with approval from forestry. Or there's the option to pay a fee in lieu, so that $260 per inch times the 20 inches that were removed, or a combination. We're open to, if there's some trees that will fit back on site and then the project owner prefers to pay the remainder of those inches with the fee in lieu, that's also acceptable. Another important change that we're proposing here, in the past, we've had, to be very frank, a reactive, undersourced forestry team. And so we're excited to be better resourced and we have a set of experts, arborists within forestry. And so they'll be able to provide this technical expertise to facilitate mitigation, but also tree protection and plantings throughout projects across the city. What we're proposing is the time that takes to provide these inspections before, during, and after projects to make sure that trees are protected and planted properly. We've calculated what that fee would be based on the staff time. So those inspection fees are listed in this table based on the replanted tree quantities that would be proposed. We wouldn't be proposing a fee for tree protection inspections or planting of trees that weren't for mitigation. This would simply be for the removal of trees that are resulting in mitigation plantings. For the first time, we are asking for a public tree plan. We're requiring that in our manual, and a visual example is there on the top right. This information has been Some of it's been required through the executive order, but not necessarily in one place, in one consistent format. So what we're doing is having a template within our manual for designers to use when they're drafting plan sets to have consistent symbols, consistent format, and this will really be a resource for those forestry inspectors to use throughout the project and make sure that regardless of what, to make sure what was approved during plan review is what's actually being executed throughout the project. The public tree plan has two components: the site plan, which includes the information of the person who collected the information, the work limits of the project, all the trees, the public trees that are growing within those work limits, the tree protection zones, which will often require fencing, as you can see in the bottom right, and then proposed removals and plantings. There's also a data table that will show either the tree tag or the inventory number for each tree, the species, diameter, and condition of each public tree, the critical root zone size, so the area that really needs to be protected to make sure that that the tree survives construction, because root damage during construction is a really negative impact to trees and their long-term survivability. And then proposed mitigation calculations. I mentioned the person contact information in the public tree plan. So this natural resources professional is also something that we've never had before. In the past, or actually in the current system, the person who collects information on the trees in a project could be an engineer, could be a surveyor, could be an intern. There's no requirements about who needs to collect that information or how knowledgeable they need to be. So by us requiring a natural resources professional, we're asking that be a landscape architect, a certified arborist, a forester, or some other professional, could be an ecologist or a biologist, but we want someone who is knowledgeable about trees, tree biology, and can record both the tree-specific information, recommend appropriate tree protection measures, and ultimately recommend retention or removal of public trees based on the impacts of that construction or that maintenance project. Of course, forestry would ultimately approve these things, but what we want to do is make sure that the information that forestry reviews is trustworthy. And this will also allow us to update and improve our public tree inventory, which is a wonderful spatial database that we've invested in heavily to keep updated. And it'll also provide some protection to the project owner by showing the baseline tree condition before the project starts. In the event that the tree was already in poor condition, they're not going to be necessarily penalized for that tree going into decline during the project. The tree species list, so currently our code lists the prohibited tree species, and it's really a best practice, as we've been talking about, to take details that may change out of code and put them into this manual where we can, they carry the force of code, but they can be updated over time. So what we're proposing is to have the prohibited and recommended tree species lists as appendices in the manual. Like I said, it'll allow for more frequent updates as species availability changes, more research is done, and climate is changing. I wanted to mention the industry standards. So our manual for the first time is referencing at the American National Standards Institute, so a national nonprofit that has a lot of important safety, tree planting, and protection standards. So as the national standards get updated, our manual will stay current. We also have, as you can see on the right, an example, standard details for tree planting and tree protection. We're updating and creating new standard details that will be resources for construction projects, and then updating the Columbus construction and materials specifications, which is really important information that is used by other departments and contractors when it comes to public projects. So making sure that that manual is consistent with our manual. So just a summary, like we talked about, this is our first manual that we've ever had around trees. It'll be a really important piece to company code, the mitigation that's now applying to all projects. We have a stronger fee structure and replacement that's being required for tree mitigation of public trees here in the city, better enforcement, and then we're now following best practices between the tree plan, the use of experts, the tree species list, and industry standards and standard details. That concludes my presentation. Thank you so much, council members, and we would welcome any questions.
Councilman Remy, any questions, sir?
Certainly. We talked about this a little bit in our briefing, but could you talk a little bit about how many trees that we think we have as far as we've done an inventory, but that are under city control?
Sure. So we have roughly 130,000 street trees within our tree lawns. And then, citywide, based on our urban tree canopy assessment, we feel that there's close to 4 million individual trees citywide.
Along those same lines, Steve or Rosalie, tell me what your perceptions regarding climate change on our forestry circumstances.
It's definitely something that we're realizing as we look at different trees within our inventory. We know that there are some trees that are struggling, with the hotter summers and the longer periods of drought, and we notice decline in those. Those are species that we're looking to probably shy away from planting in large numbers moving into the future. And then also we have trees that we kind of put out there as test plots and experimental plantings to see how they do, and if they're good vigorous species and they do well with the challenges within the streetscape, those will be additional species that we'll add to the list and use in the coming years.
And along those same lines, why is it important with regards to trees, Steve? I know you have a passion, and Rosalie, but for the community, why is it so special given the circumstances? I think we have over 120,000 trees. Tell me why.
Well, trees provide an socio-economic benefit. So, not only do we list all the the environmental benefits of the shade, reducing the heat island effect, fighting reflective heat from hard surfaces. Trees also provide economical benefits along business corridors. There's a study that shows that people that shop within tree-lined streets spend more time and money in these areas. And then the social benefits of it. Trees have a calming effect with everybody and residents that have them. And it makes a difference in crime rates and in the health of the general public.
Thank you. And for the audience, there is a document over here to the right, a public tree code fact sheet. Please take advantage of it before you leave to educate individuals about trees and what's important, as you've already heard from Steve. With that, if the councilmember doesn't have any other additional questions, I'd like to enter into public testimony. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I do have a couple more things I want to talk about. how can people get involved with the Urban Forestry Master Plan? Obviously, the outreach was extensive, before we passed it, but certainly, if people want more information and future projects that we're going to be working on in this regard, how can they get involved?
Yeah, thank you for that, Commissioner, or Council Member, excuse me. So really, we try to keep everyone updated. We have a project website that's a great resource. We also have a listserv that you can sign up for updates. We won't bombard your inbox. We send them out quarterly that share the progress that we're making and how you can get involved. And I know we have Shelley Douglas here, who's the director of Green Columbus. Green Columbus is a nonprofit here locally that's taking on the helm of organizing a tree coalition. So we are really excited to partner more with the community. And, in addition to the things that our department does, whether it's, investing in our data, our street tree inventory, our urban tree canopy assessment, these code updates, beyond that, at tree planting events, we're really excited to partner further with community groups and together implement this Urban Forestry Master Plan. It's something we can't do by ourselves.
When you look at the goals that we have set for 2030 and 2050 and that sort of thing, how are we tracking? I mean, obviously, we're kind of on the early portion of this, but, I was in Seattle in July, tree canopy. I mean, you can go down the streets and not see the sky overhead. And so that, stark difference between what we have here in Columbus. But what do you see? How are we tracking? What's yet to come?
Sure. So it is something, to your point, that we're going to have to continue to monitor. We have a new urban tree canopy assessment that's going to be published soon, yet this year, and that will tell us kind of more of a historic look. We've been asked the question many times, have we gained, have we lost? We've only had one data point in the past to really talk about canopy as a whole. So that's going to be really exciting to share out kind of a historic 2011 to 2021. But to your point, to see how our canopy is changing, we're going to have to continue to monitor it and do those analyses in the future. In terms of the progress that we're making, though, on the Urban Forestry Master Plan, I feel that we're making really solid progress, not only with, like I mentioned, the work that we're doing as a city, investing in our staff, our equipment, our contracts, investing in our data and having a better sense of how we can proactively manage our forest. For the first time, having a bank of all the planting sites on our right-of-way. We've never had that before. Working on an equitable planting plan, working on this public tree code, turning our sites to private tree code. I think we're pursuing a lot of actions that we hope will have positive effects on our canopy. Anything you want to add?
No, and I feel confident, based on the three major goals of the UFMP that, we're trending in a positive fashion for both short-term goals and, with the advent of this public tree code and the technical manual, we will limit the net loss. And then through our successive plantings over the next 6 to 7 years, we have impetus on, equitable tree canopy coverage. So those two, short-term goals, I feel that, we'll be very, very confident to complete. And then, we'll turn, in all these, to help with the larger overarching goal of the 40% canopy coverage by 2050.
I'm also going to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about, I was trying to push for a citizen, arborist and program and that sort of thing, but was happy to help support an extra crew for you and asked you the other day, do you need more? But talk a little bit about lead time and then what a citizen can do if they want to prune their trees out front in the tree lawn and that process that
Sure.
that takes.
So relative to service requests, that may be generated through 311 for a problem tree, that you may have within the front of your house, say you would like to have it pruned. An arborist would come out and do a site assessment and, assign a priority level to it. Understanding that we have priority levels from tree emergency, ASAP, priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. Say that it may just be rudimentary pruning, do some structural training on a different tree or on a street tree, if you will. They may have a very low priority rating as a 2 or a 3. If the lead time of 18 months to 2 years on some of these is not palatable for a homeowner, there is the opportunity to contact forestry directly, based on the review of an arborist, being out on site to issue a permit, where you may take it upon yourself to hire a certified arborist, tree care contractor to come out and address whatever pruning needs, would be amenable to the relative arborists in the city and within our goals to maintain these trees out on the street. That is one way. The other way would be, to wait through our additional expansions. We hope within the next few years to greatly reduce our backlog and carry out proactive tree care. Probably moving in a year or so, we hope to spend our dormant seasons pruning whole streets, maintaining, having a big presence in the relative neighborhoods within each region of the city.
Thank you for letting me take that detour. I think it's important for the public to understand, this is all part of this. And, I wanted people to understand, because when I first got here, I had a neighbor a resident call and say, hey, I want to pay to have the trees pruned. And it was kind of like, sorry, we don't do that at that time. So I'm happy to see the progress. And of course, the investment, and this is just all going to the greater goal.
Definitely. And we would love anybody who wants to be a good steward of their street trees to, and have that interest, have that ability to maintain them. Moving forward, in the coming years, we definitely hope to form kind of a tree tenders group to help out with newly planted trees, on the basic maintenance of, mulching, weeding, possible low limb pruning to help out these trees that we put in the ground. And then understandably, large shade trees, would come under the purview of our general tree care crews, or again, if a resident would like to hire a certified arborist, we would have those as possibilities. And for people that are interested too, a shameless plug, if you will, in a few weeks, we're going to have a tree walk at Whetstone Park to just kind of go through and talk about 50 trees within the envelope there. Anything from basic tree identification to whatever questions the public may have. So that's one of our first outreach events, that will engage with different members of the public if they would like to come out on a nice balmy, I think it's a Wednesday, October 3rd. So.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate having you here personally. I think it's great. I'm glad to see the administration's investment in this area. It's incredibly important, especially when we talk about equity issues. And, we know how big this is and how important it is for some of these neighborhoods that have 8% tree coverage, that sort of thing. So being intentional is important, and that's exactly what we're talking about here. And so thank you once again. Chair Brown, back to you.
Thank you, Councilmember Remy. At this time, I'd like to move to public testimony. First to speak is Laura Fay, and it'll be via WebEx. Mark, are we all set?
Thank you for allowing me this time to speak to you about this important topic. And I'm representing the Friends of the Lower Olentangy Watershed, or FLOW for short. And we are very proud of the city staff, especially Rosalie and Steve, for making these revisions to the code, especially section 912.06. The tree mitigation and protection section. We think that will be a huge step towards reducing or getting to the no net loss of trees. We're losing healthy trees every day and just not getting back near enough canopy. And we also think that'll help us get to our tree canopy goal. I would like to say one thing that I would like to see the city work on, and that is in the tree protection or the tree best management practice manual. The current tree list is over 70% non-native to North America. And, you know, we do need trees, but for humans, but we also need trees for a healthy watershed to support our bees and birds and our mammals. And so we would like canopy trees, and we would like them, you know, to be native to help reduce the urban heat island, make the city walkable. And so with that, the focus, possibly using the USDA's climate tree atlas, which is already, scientists there have already taken climate change into account. There is a manual or a model for urban forests in Central Ohio. So I'd like them to considerably look at that, revise the list before spring tree planting. Thanks again, and kudos on the great work.
Ms. Fay, thank you for your comments. The staff were taking notes, so we'll take your comments into consideration. Next, we would like to have Ms. Shelley Douglas. Ms. Douglas, please step to the podium. Please state your name, your address, and any organization you represent, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello. Name, address, and organization, right? My name is Shelley Douglas.
Fine.
What'd you say?
Name and address, and any organization that you may be representing, if you are representing any. Okay?
Okay, yeah, my name is Shelley Douglas. I am the executive director of Green Columbus. So I'm here today on behalf of our group, and we are located at 605 North High Street, so right downtown, but I am here today to voice our support for this public tree code and kind of talk about why it's so important to us and our community. So Green Columbus has been around here since 2007, and we have seen great progress in terms of the innovation and motivation around urban forestry in our community. And we're really excited to see that Columbus Recreation and Parks is modernizing our public tree code to match that new motivation and innovation that we have here in our city. And I'm excited to voice our support. And so unfortunately, we've lost a significant amount of our tree canopy here in Columbus due to things like the emerald ash borer crisis and just the general development that comes with population growth. And American Forest recommends a tree canopy of 40%, and we have about 20% here in Columbus, but there are pockets of our communities that have under 10. And while we did talk a little bit about the benefits of trees in terms of wildlife and even for business vitality, I really want to stress the importance of trees for our human health and resilient communities. This is no longer just an issue of climate change or other things going on. This is an issue of our human health, and it's a social injustice that our communities don't have equitable tree canopy. So with the fastest growing urban heat island in the country, we really want to make sure that our trees that are in existence are protected, as well as the planting of new trees that will shade our future generations and promote things like lower levels of asthma, lower rates of heart disease, and actually can do things like decrease crime in our communities. So we're excited to see that the city recognizes that our street trees are an invaluable resource to our communities. And Green Columbus is a tree planting organization, and many of the neighborhoods that we plant in, they don't have room in their yards for a large tree to shade their home, and a lot of times that leaves the tree lawn as the only spot for trees. And this happens to be our neighborhoods where people are walking to work, people do not have AC, and people don't have personal vehicles. So it's even more important to get those trees into those communities. And I'd like to reiterate my colleague Laura's point on the native trees on the tree list, and this is something that we will work with Rec and Parks directly about, and just hope that we can continue to do better. And one other thing that we're hoping to see develop in the future is some sort of obligation for arborists to not cut down these trees and for there to be some sort of accountability on them to not complete these projects when they know that they're illegal. So, yeah, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming down, Ms. Douglas. On deck is Mr. Nathaniel Johnson. Again, Mr. Johnson, please state your full name, your address, and any organization you may represent, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Councilman Brown and Remy. Nathan Johnson, and I'm representing this evening the Ohio Environmental Council Action Fund. And we're located at 1145 Chesapeake Avenue, Suite I. So this evening, I want to speak in favor of the proposed tree code. And, you know, Columbus's tree canopy really is its best natural asset. Our urban tree canopy keeps us cool from the heat, it gives us cleaner air, and it even boosts our moods. And that's something we've heard tonight. And gosh, just walking over here this evening, seeing some of our beautiful canopy, certainly was feeling good. So, you know, under the existing ordinance, the city is actually losing more tree canopy than is being replaced, and that's something that was remarked on tonight as well. So this new proposed tree canopy ordinance is really important. It's geared up to address that problem, and it would satisfy help satisfy one of the 3 main goals of the Urban Forestry Master Plan. The proposed tree code modernizes Columbus's tree protections to reflect national standards and best practices. It closes a loophole by requiring that all removed public trees be replaced or paid for. And it places higher value on our public trees by updating appraisal values and replacement rates. And it will require construction projects to have tree preservation plans. It will inject expertise in the process as well, which will be very helpful. Through fees, it will give the city employees in the forestry department more opportunities to do good work. And the proposed public tree code is necessary to protect and increase Columbus's tree canopy. The OEC Action Fund fully supports this proposed ordinance and respectfully requests its passage. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any questions at all, Councilmember? Thank you, sir. And also, next to speak is Mr. Steve Cottrell. Mr. Cottrell, again, please state your full name, your address, and any questions and any organization that you may represent. And again, sir, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Chair Brown and Councilmember Remy. I'm Steve Cottrell, 6141 Lancaster-Kirkersville Road, and I'm currently serving as the chair of the Columbus Tree Subcommission, a group of volunteer advisors that works with the forestry staff and Recreation and Parks Department. We operate under the umbrella of the Recreation and Parks Commission. On behalf of the subcommission, I want to thank you and all those involved for the work that has gone into crafting the new Urban Forestry Master Plan. The officials, citizens, consultants, nonprofits, and staff who worked together to create this plan did a wonderful job giving Columbus a state-of-the-art master plan to improve neighborhoods and enhance the city's extremely valuable tree canopy over the coming years. There have been and will be many steps to take as the plan moves from the page into the real world. Revising the city's code to better manage, protect, and nurture trees on city property is a vital step. The proposed changes to Chapter 912 will enable the city to manage its urban forest canopy with new tools and incentives as development and redevelopment continues in Columbus. Some of the changes will also better protect existing trees, facilitate wise replacement, improve public safety and health, and better enable the city to deal with climate change and the ongoing challenges of invasive pests. No tree lives forever, but once the investment in planting has been made, everyone should work together to help every tree live a long, productive, and appreciated life. I respectfully encourage the council to approve the proposed changes to Chapter 912, and I thank you for your ongoing commitment to making Columbus a more verdant and vital place.
Thank you. Councilmember, any questions? No? Well, let me just state for a few comments here. First and foremost, for the citizens who are present, again, please feel free to take one of the fact sheets. I think there's value in being able to convey the message appropriately to others about the importance of what we're doing here with an urban master forestry plan. If you have any questions, first and foremost, you can contact R.F. Hendren at columbus.gov. Feel free to ask it for any questions regarding planting, pruning, or removal of public trees. Contact our forestry division through 311 or forestry@columbus.gov or by calling 614-645-6640. I guess it's important to convey to everyone, and Councilmember, if you have some comments, but I think this is important. Our tree canopy and sustaining our forestry in our community has value, and how it is handled by our Recreation and Parks Division with the competency of the forestry and the arborists that we have is really, really special. And this council takes it seriously. You heard my colleague speak about the issue 2 years ago regarding the concern, and now here we are. I would say to you, to the commissioner, when you meet with your fellow commissioners to explain the importance of the issue from our perspective and why we think there's value associated with it. All public comments should be received by September 22nd, so that to the Rec and Parks website, that will give us time to evaluate the commentary, and then subsequently so that this council can vote and act upon the recommendations that have been proposed. This has been a long time coming. I know the staff is very excited and pleased about it. I'm glad to have Steve and Steve both present as well from our Rec and Parks Division. And with that, before I close out, Councilman Remy, do you have any comments?
Yeah, just again, thank you to everyone down there. I do have one more question, and just to speak a little bit about the work that you've done on the tree species list. Obviously we heard a couple of comments about that.
Sure. We've had, early initial meetings with the relative individuals that had concerns about it. One thing that we know about the trees that grow within the tree lawns is, unfortunately, it's a very taxing environment for them. So, some native species do not do as well as others. Understanding this, we are also open. We are going to sit down and kind of look at some different relative species and make sure that we make the appropriate changes that is palatable to everybody. But we also know that these species will be something that will become the legacy for our streets to come.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your presentation today.
Again, let me restate for those who are watching. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to contact Ms. Hendren at rfhhendren@columbus.gov, or feel free to contact our 311 phone through information and speak to the Urban Forestry to get information about what we do and what they do and how they handle it. I want to take a moment to say thank you to my staff. Certainly Tiffany Friend, and to Councilman Remy's staff, Lucy Frank, for being so supportive and helpful. And reluctantly, I'll say thank you to Mark for making sure that our technology works the way it's supposed to. With all of that, again, thank you all for coming, and have a good evening.